Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of Mindfulness for Stress Relief. So today's class isn't one where we're going to do a lot of practice. We're going to do a little breathing at the beginning and a little at the end. But this class is really to help us gain a foundational base of knowledge of our 4 primary stress responses and how our nervous system responds to stress. So we're going to talk a little bit about trauma. We're going to talk about what makes the difference between having a stressful experience that leaves a residue and that gets fully metabolized, and how we can support ourselves in feeling less stressed, feeling stressed less of the time. And I think that this is going to be a class that you'll really enjoy. For me, once I learned this information, I just thought, like, oh my God, why don't we learn this in school? Like, this is life-changing. I gained so much more compassion for myself, for the people around me. It just kind of blew my world right open, and I really hope that it helps you. I really hope that it offers you something. So because this is less about practice and more about just kind of taking in information, I encourage you to do whatever you need to do in order to best absorb information. So if you're someone that likes to take notes, do that. Maybe you're someone that likes to move your body or just kind of move around the house, go for a walk while you listen. Yeah, do what works for you. And as with everything in this course, you don't need to memorize anything. What lands for you will land, and the stuff that trickles to the wayside doesn't matter. The things that land for you in this are the only things that you really need to care about. So you can trust that your mind and your body will take this in exactly the way it needs to. You can let go and just let it do its thing. So before we begin to get into this information, let's take a moment to check in with ourselves. So get out your journal, or if you don't have a journal, a piece of paper, write down the date and maybe what the weather's like. And then write down 3 words or more that describe how you're feeling. I'm going to do this with you. Okay, so if you need a little more time, go ahead and pause this recording to keep writing. And let's do a little breathing to start. So, let's do even breath today. So for even breath, we are going to inhale and then exhale for the same amount of time. So let's start with a count of 3 for the inhale and count of 3 for the exhale, and then we'll move to a count of 4 for a few breaths. So wherever you are, you can let yourself ground into your space a little more. Maybe taking a moment to clear your space if you're feeling like things are kind of cluttered or you're feeling distracted. And take a moment to connect to the surface that your body is resting on. So if you're sitting, noticing your sit bones resting on the chair, floor, whatever you're sitting on. Or maybe you notice your feet touching the floor. And feel that you can take an easy breath in and let your breath out and release. release even deeper down into that surface that's holding you. Let's do a few rounds of even breath. So when you're ready, take a breath in for the count of 1, 2, 3, and breathe out, 2, 3. Breathe in, 2, 3, and out, 2, 3. Breathe in, 2, 3, and out, 2, 3. Last one. Breathe in, 2, 3, and breathe out, 2, 3. Now let's increase that even breath to a count of 4, and you're welcome to tune me out and change that number to whatever works better for you, whether it's a lower number or higher number. Do what works for you. So if it's not 4, that's okay. We'll breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Last one. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. So your natural breathing might resume, or you might stick with that way of breathing or take some deeper breaths. Let your body do whatever it feels inclined to do through breathing, through movement. You might notice that you feel like you want to stretch or wiggle, or if your eyes were closed, maybe you want to open your eyes and look around your space. And you might feel a little different than you did when we first started. So the information that I'm going to share with you today, like I said, has been so instrumental for me in understanding myself and other people. And it's usually not taught in conjunction with mindfulness, which I think is like a huge loss, because it's, to me, they're really inseparable. So I'm really excited to share this with you today. So about 85 to 95% of our responses, our actions, are happening at a subconscious level, meaning we're not consciously choosing to do things, though we may think we are. But what's actually happening is that there are these complex networks of neurons that carve a path. So let's say that every time you stub your toe, you grab your foot and you're jumping up and down, you're saying ouch, ouch, ouch. You do that enough times and your body, your brain creates this neural pathway that says, oh, that's what we do when that happens. And so you might find yourself doing that even if it doesn't actually hurt that much. And then the funny thing about pain psychology is that because you're doing that, it actually hurts more. But that's a topic for another time. So I'm also a doula, and I used to teach comfort techniques for pain relief at Grand Run Hospital and in midwives' childbirth education classes. So I've been studying pain and the mind and body for many years. So that's just a side note. But so we have these automatic responses, and we may think that they're conscious, but if you think about something like driving your car, you might have a time where you're driving and you find yourself pull in at your destination and you're like, how did I get here? I've just been daydreaming about that thing. You've just been daydreaming or thinking about some idea for like 10 minutes, but all of a sudden you're here. And that's because all of those motions involved in driving, all of those processes are so automatic. They become subconscious, they become unconscious, which is a beautiful thing because we don't want to have to take things that we do all the time and have to use so much neocortex energy, this front brain that requires a lot of our energy to use. We don't want to be doing that for every little thing. So that's why you can like spread butter on a piece of toast. You can make yourself a meal that you make all the time. You can take a shower and you don't need to think about like, oh, I'm gonna make circles. Oh, and then I do this. Like you just do it, you know to do shampoo first and then conditioner. Like you just do it. So this is a really good adaptive thing. And this is also true for our stress responses. We don't choose the way we respond to stress. Our nervous system has a menu of options that it can choose from. And it starts at fight, and then it works its way down this cascade. So if we don't respond to that first response, which is fight, then it's going to go to the next one. If we don't respond to that, it's going to go to the next one, and so on. And so they start with the one that requires the most energy, the one that is the most kind of intense and fiery, and then it works toward things that require less energy. So we're going to talk about what those 4 responses are here in just a minute. But I want to talk a little bit about trauma and how that is stored in the body and how stress and trauma are related. So I think first we have to define trauma. And there's so many ways to do this. The definition that I like to work with is that trauma is it's an unmetabolized experience because our system didn't have the resources at the time that experience happened in order to digest it. It was too much, it was too fast, or it was too soon. And when we think about the things that stress us out, stressors or sources of traumatic experiences, it doesn't have to be anything big, right? We've got like capital T trauma, which is, like really horrific accidents and assaults and things like that, what we tend to think of as trauma. And then there's like little t trauma, which happens all the time, which is like, oh my God, I just put like my headphones in and started a song and my volume was turned up all the way and whoa, I need a minute to recover from that. Or, like, wow, I just opened Instagram and there's this like really in your face post that I was just not prepared for, or all of these little things that take us out of the flow of our system. They kind of knock us off balance, and then our system feels a little like, whoa, we got to get back to center here, and it requires something in order for us to come back to that homeostasis point of balance that our system is always trying to be at. Our nervous system has 2 primary jobs, and that's keeping us safe and it's restoring us to homeostasis, to a center. So these stress responses are ways of repair. They're ways of trying to bring us back to the center. They're trying to create an action in us that will bring us to a more balanced place. So they may not be comfortable, they may not be fun, but they are created from a place of adapting to stress, adapting to our environment, because that's what we do as animals. We adapt to our environment. And so while we are wired to respond to stress in a way that helps us adapt, we're also wired for healing and for resilience. And what's really interesting is that we don't see signs of trauma, that is undigested, unmetabolized, stressful experiences. We don't see that in wild animals. We do see it in domesticated animals. And you could say that a human being is like a domesticated human. We're not a wild human. If you compared us to, a tribe of uncontacted people in the Amazon, we would have very different nervous systems, very different responses to stress, very different tones to our nervous system. And we've lost a lot of our tools for resilience through becoming civilized. When we're growing up, we receive messages about how we should act. And if you look at kids, like especially kids that are like under 5, they make all kinds of weird sounds and faces, and they like wiggle and they make all these movements, and they're just so expressive. And that's the way that humans innately are. We are designed to be expressive, because in those expressions, in a yawn, in a moan, in a groan, in a shiver, in a wiggle, in all of these little things, there is a release of experience, thought, emotion that when we don't move it through in that innate subconscious way, it just kind of happens. We just make the sound, we just do the movement, then it gets stored in our tissues. And we don't complete the cycle of release and coming back to center. So if you're someone who maybe you feel like, oh God, I'm just tired all the time, or I feel anxious all the time, or angry all the time, or like, God, I'm just always people pleasing, this class might be really enlightening for you in why that might be. Because our responses to our unmetabolized experiences continue to show up because our nervous system is trying to get us to take the action that will heal it to completion. Our system, our bodies are so wise, they're so intelligent, and if we can start to listen to those subtle little whispers that our body sends us, we can repair a lot. So one of my trauma teachers is Kimberly Johnson. She has this great course called Activate Your Inner Jaguar. And it's about reclaiming that kind of wild animal human self. And this course is specifically for women, for those who are interested in taking it. But she does offer other courses for all gender identities. And she talks about some of the courses that she's taken to help people in trauma repair. So she is a somatic experiencing practitioner, and that can also be referred to as a trauma resolution practitioner. And so she said that she's done this course called Eye of the Needle. And this is a course that's designed to help trauma resolution practitioners help people heal from the worst of the worst experiences, like just the most awful things. And she was like really excited for this course and thought like she was gonna learn some new cool stuff, like some techniques that were like, kept at this really high expert level. And she realized it was just the same stuff over and over again. It's like these really simple mindfulness tools that we can use to help restore our innate resilience. So some of those tools are like, when we were orienting ourselves in space, looking around our space, and then turning inward, tuning into sensations, different channels inside. The ability to choose our attention, so kind of honing our focus. The ability to feel good, to focus even for a moment on something that is enjoyable rather than being focused on the things that are frustrating or stressful or anything like that. We'll go a little more into that topic in the future. Uninhibited expression of movement, of sound, creative expression. It's de-shaming, and then it's also making new choices. So all of those components are components of healing, though that is how we heal. We restore our innate animalistic nature. We express ourselves, we make sounds, we make movements. We just give ourselves the stretch when we want it. We just let ourselves make the really big mouth open yawn. all of those things are very important. So that's why I teach this along with mindfulness, because the two are really interconnected, and there's so much amazing research about how mindfulness and meditation and yoga and all sorts of mindful practices can help us heal from trauma and from mental health challenges. And like, this is the stuff right here, guys. Like, these are skills that will see you through your entire life, and they will only deepen as you practice. So I'm really excited to share this with you. So we're going to dive into the 4 stress responses and talk a little bit about how to work with them briefly. And I know that when we talk about anxiety here in a little bit, that's going to be part of one of these responses. I know a lot of you are going to really want more information, because anxiety is such a common stress response for so many of us. So actually, our next 2 classes, week 5 and week 6, are going to be all about anxiety, different ways it shows up, and how we can work with it in really practical, simple ways. So I'm really excited to share that with you. So let's dive in, shall we? So in our nervous system, we have sympathetic, parasympathetic. These are the 2 sides of our nervous system. And I know it's kind of confusing because they sound so similar. I don't know who named this stuff. They should have chosen a different name. Sympathetic, parasympathetic. So when the sympathetic side of our nervous system is balanced, it's healthy, it's not under threat, it feels safe. When we're running sympathetic energy and we feel safe, we feel motivated. We've got plenty of get up and go energy. We have enough energy to do the things we want to do. We probably feel social. We feel good, right? We feel energized and motivated. On the parasympathetic side, if we are healthy, balanced, not under threat, we go into what we call rest and digest. So we can have sphincter release. We're able to go to the bathroom. We are more likely to be intimate. We can fall asleep. Our bodies can digest with ease. So we have to move through both of these throughout the day. We're always running both energies at the same time, just like different amounts. I know you've probably had moments where you can feel that, like, let's say you've been doing some schoolwork and you feel like you're kind of getting tired, but you sort of have a little bit within you, so you want to just keep going. That's feeling your sympathetic energy starting to wane and parasympathetic energy kind of taking over. So we move through both sides of these all the time. Now, when our sympathetic side is under threat, and being under threat doesn't mean that we're actually in danger. It can mean that we have a stressful thought or a series of stressful or worried thoughts. It can be that, someone sent us an email. We're like, oh my God, I don't want to open that yet. It could be bad. There's no range of, or rather there's an infinite range of things that could register as a threat to us. It doesn't make sense to us consciously, but it happens all the time. We have little things that pop up that are like, oh gosh. Yeah, anyway, I won't go too far into that, but I guess I just wanted to say that, if you have a group of like 10 people who all go through the exact same experience together, they're all going to have different responses. Some of them might feel really impacted, and some of them might feel like, why is anybody stressed out? That was like not a big deal at all. So it's not about the thing, it's about how your system perceives the thing. So when our sympathetic side of our nervous system, when we're running sympathetic energy and we feel stressed, we will go into fight or flight. You've probably heard of those. So in fight and flight, our muscles engage. We feel tension in our bodies because our body is trying to get us to take the action of fighting the threat or running away from it. So if you think of this in our, like hunter-gatherer times, and we encountered, let's say, a bear, then you're either going to fight the bear, probably not a good idea, or you're going to run away from the bear. Fighting the bear could be like yelling at it and trying to make yourself really big, right? So it's like kind of showing off a little bit. It's going toward the threat. Flight is moving away from the threat. So now there's different levels of these responses. So low level fight response is just feeling irritated. Like, oh God, why did that person say that to me? Oh God, my lunch isn't cooked right. You just feel irritable and maybe you don't know why. That is yourself starting to go into a fight response. And as the threat increases, the feeling escalates and the amount of adrenaline and cortisol that gets pumped into your system increases. So as the threat increases, you move from irritation to frustration, right? You get agitated. You're really bothered. I don't know why that was funny to me. And as the threat increases even more, you get angry, and then you go into a rage. That's the peak of fight response, is rage. So if we don't take action on the fight response, our body will go to the next response. It'll be like, okay, they're not responding to that. Let's try something else. So then you'll feel like you want to move away. You want to move away from the threat. And you don't have to go all the way up. Like, you don't have to go to a rage in order to go to the next one. We're all different. We all have different kind of like thresholds. So in flight, a low level flight response is going to feel like scattered, unfocused, like you're just like maybe overwhelmed. And then as that threat increases, you start to feel avoidant. I don't want to open that email. I don't want to talk to that person. I just can't open my computer. I don't want to go outside, avoidant. As the threat increases, you get more worried, anxious, and then eventually the top of a flight response is panic, right? So like a panic attack. So if we don't respond to either of those two, we don't create an action that's in the realm of fighting. We don't perform an action that's in the realm of fleeing. Then our system will say, okay, we've expended a lot of energy. We're going to switch over to the parasympathetic side, and we're going to fawn. So fawning is moving toward the threat. You can think of it like appeasing. Like, if you were running into a bear, it'd be like, it's okay, bear. It's okay. You can calm down. I'm not going to bug you. I'm walking away, right? That's kind of appeasing. Or it can be being nice. Like when you don't want to be nice to somebody, like if someone comes up to you and they're just having a bad day, they're freaking out, they're going off, and you are like, oh, hey, yeah, I totally understand how you would feel that way. Do you want to talk? Do you want to go get ice cream or something? So it can be being nice. It can be like joining somebody else's side. It can be people pleasing. So if we don't do that, if we don't move toward the threat and fawn, then we'll go to freeze. And freeze is like our body's final, it's like our last resort in a way. It's the last place that we can go. It requires the least energy from us. So a low level freeze is you're just gonna feel kind of listless, kind of blah, like apathetic maybe. And then as you move up, you might feel kind of numb or stuck. Like, oh, I've got this stuff to do and I just can't get going today. I can't get off the couch. And then as that threat increases, it can be depression, resignation, like, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just do whatever you want. Eat whatever you want for dinner. And then at the highest level of freeze is collapse. Collapse can look really different for all of us. Some people just fall asleep. So I was reading a story about a pilot who falls asleep when he gets stressed. I was just thinking, like, that doesn't seem like the right profession for that person. So some people just fall asleep. Some people get so tired that they just like can't do anything and they've just got to go retreat. Some people get migraines or get a fever, they get sick. Like people, we have such a huge range of collapse responses. But in some way, your body is saying, I'm not gonna get on top of this threat. I can't fight it, so I'm done. Like I'm just not gonna do anything. And we feel freeze. Something that I've seen a lot is like somebody asks us a question and our mind goes blank, or we're watching something happen and we want to step in, but we just can't. And we might look back and think like, God, why didn't I do something? Why didn't I say something? It's because you're in a freeze. And remember that these are not conscious choices. This is what your body is doing to keep you safe. Even if it's trying to keep you safe from a thought in your mind or from a scenario you're imagining, to your nervous system, it's all real. It's all the same. Your body does not know the difference between like watching a scary movie and the scary movie happening in real life. That's why your heart beats. That's why you're so afraid. That's why you jump. That's your body's responding as if it's all real. The movies, the thoughts, the Instagram posts, like all of it registers the same. So sympathetic is that more energized, fiery kind of response. And then parasympathetic is that low energy, kind of like a prey response, right? If you think about like a possum, how they play dead, they're not actually playing dead. They don't have a choice in that. And then, you know, like a deer, if they see you and you register as a threat, they're gonna, right? They freeze and they don't move. And then once they start to feel like maybe you're not so much of a threat, they're gonna start to look around. What are my surroundings? Where am I? And as they feel a little safer, then they're gonna start to move their head, right? Social nervous system coming back online. And then they're gonna start to move their body. They're gonna look at their family, if they've got their babies with them. And then maybe if they felt really scared or if there was really some fear, they're gonna shake. They're gonna shake it off. So what happens when we don't do any of these things? When we don't respond to what our body is asking of us? Let's say you feel anxious and you're fidgeting, you're pacing, you can't stop moving, your skin feels electric, you feel so uncomfortable. Your body's trying to get you to move. It wants you to run. But maybe you're not a runner. Maybe you're sitting in the middle of class and that's just doesn't seem like an option right then. We have to find a way to complete these cycles. Otherwise, our body will keep trying. It'll keep giving you the impulse until you complete it. So regularly doing things like shaking, which I don't know if I said this in this video or not. I had to film this once before and then my phone died. So I don't know if I said this in this video or if that was in the previous one, but animals oftentimes to release residue from an experience, they will shake. If you see a dog when they get out of a fight or even getting up from like a nap, they will shake. They'll shake it off. So giving yourself opportunities to shake, to bounce, to tap, to dance, to do yoga, to just move intuitively, or like really give yourself a lot of movement to where some of those experiences that left some residue, whether it was like, you know, you read like a stupid comment on Facebook. I don't think you guys use Facebook. I think that's like a millennial thing. You read like a stupid comment online and it like really is grinding your gears. That can be released through movement. We can release through breath work. There's lots of ways to kind of expel some of those things. So that's one of the reasons that regular movement can be so helpful for us. And also regular meditation and mindfulness, because it allows us to quiet so much of what's happening in our mind and kind of clear it away. And we can get into that subconscious place, which includes our body sensations, our emotions. A lot of those live in the realm of the subconscious. So when we can dive into that world, we can start to heal a lot of things. So we're going to wrap up here in just a minute, but I want to talk briefly about kind of how to support yourself based on your tone. So we all have a tone to our nervous system. Like I tend to freeze. That's kind of where my body goes to, because that's worked for me in the past. Or if I've had a bit of caffeine, or it's a different kind of stress, like a work stress, then I'll go into flight. I'll get scattered, I'll get anxious. So we all have a tone to our nervous system. We don't necessarily move in that cascade of like fight, flight, fawn, freeze. Our body has learned, it's adapted, oh, they take action on this, so I'm gonna do this thing, or this worked for us when we were a kid, so let's do this response again. This will get their attention. So we have a tone, we have a tendency, subconscious. So if you tend toward a sympathetic response, fight or flight, what you want to do is to, when you feel it, lean into it, give yourself a release, and then relax. So shaking and then doing like some slow flow yoga, going for a run and then meditating. If you tend toward the parasympathetic side, you have that kind of tone, you tend to fawn or freeze when you feel stressed, then you want to lean into retreat, curling up under the covers, going in your car, diving into like a YouTube video or a song or something, some kind of retreat, and then eventually you want to mobilize yourself. So that can be moving your body, or if you don't feel ready for that yet, it can be listening to music that gets you like pumped up, makes you feel happy. It can be drinking something warm or caffeinated. Not always the best idea when we're feeling stressed, but so if you tend toward a parasympathetic tone, you tend to fawn or freeze, retreat, and then mobilize. So angry, anxious people, prioritize release and relax. That's your self-care ticket. So get your run in and then meditate or something like that. And then freeze and fawning people, prioritize retreat, and then mobilize. So we can start to frame our self-care in a way that supports our kind of global healing. The things that are still left over from our childhood or from 2 years ago, or from a couple months ago that haven't been completed, we can start to complete them by giving ourselves that frame of self-care that really supports us. So I hope that this gives you a little more compassion for yourself. I hope you can start to have thoughts when you feel angry, like, oh, this worked for me in the past. I responded to this, or this was within my capacity, and so that's why this is coming up for me. My system is trying to keep me safe, and I can just love myself. In my experience, I don't have to judge myself for getting angry. This has worked for me before, and the same with any of the other responses. And I hope that it can give you more compassion for the people around you too. If you see someone who maybe you regard as lazy, they might tend to freeze. If you see someone who, maybe like your mom is just worries about everything, she probably has a flight tendency. And again, we don't choose these. Our body chooses for us, and we can start to restore our innate resilience and natural tone through really taking good care of ourselves, really prioritizing rest. If we tend toward the sympathetic side, really prioritizing movement. If we tend toward the parasympathetic side, you kind of want to move in the opposite direction of your tendency. And when you're in that stress response. Lean into it a little and then go toward the opposite. I hope that makes sense. So I know this is a lot of information, and again, you don't have to memorize anything. When we talk more about anxiety in the next two classes, you'll start to remember things that we had talked about. So even if you couldn't give someone a book report about the flight response right now, that's okay. You don't need to. Whatever landed for you was exactly what needed to land for you. And I encourage you to revisit this video or this recording if it's something that really interests you and you want to kind of divulge more from. Listen to this again in like a week, or even at the when the course is over, and see what new things speak to you, what new things kind of pique your interest, because it will change over time. So before we part ways, I want to do a short breath practice for you. And this is a really interesting breath. It has a lot of incredible research behind it about how much it can help us calm down. So breath is very individual. It's different for all of us. It registers as different for all of us because we all have a different nervous system tone. So this one might work for you. It might not, but I encourage you to try it with me and see how it feels. So this breath has the ability, if it works with your tone, to bring a lot of relaxation in a short amount of time. So it's 2 quick inhales and then a slow, long exhale. So and the inhale is through the nose. So 2 quick inhales through the nose, long, slow exhale through the mouth. So So when I first did this, I noticed that it's like when you've just had like a really big cry, your body starts to do that naturally, doesn't it? So our body has all these amazing ways of soothing us and calming us down, returning us to our center, returning us to that resilient homeostasis. So let's do just 5 rounds of that together, and then we'll part ways. So when you're ready, we'll begin. 2 quick inhales and a long, slow exhale. 5 breaths. Let's do it. Breathing in. Exhale long and slow. And it might take a little bit of time to get the hang of it. That's okay. 2 inhales. Slow exhale. And now just do it with me. Last one. So take a moment to notice how you feel. My body always wants to take some deep breaths after that one. So this is a class, this one today, where we talked about a lot of stuff, and it might have brought some stuff up for you to the surface. We talked about trauma, we did some new breaths, we talked about stress, we talked about our past, and all of those things can bring up, it can bring up uncomfortable feelings and memories, and we can be comforted by the fact that those are coming up because we're ready to handle it. It's coming up because we have a newfound capacity within ourselves, or we have a new awareness that's giving us more information to where we can move in that direction of healing and completing cycles more and more. So if something's come up for you, you don't have to dig into it any further if you don't want. You might feel inclined to journal about it, to talk to someone you trust about it. But I encourage you that if something is coming up and it feels like it needs some attention, to make an appointment with a professional, talk to me, talk to a parent or someone you love and trust, because our system is really creative in how it brings us to healing. And when these things come up, it's not healing up, it's not coming up because anything's wrong, it's coming up because it's probably ready to be cleared and to be worked through. So the beautiful thing about mindfulness and somatics is that things just kind of work themselves out. I've had so many things heal, not even needing to know what they were. And then I got into a situation where it came up again and I realized that it was no longer an issue. So I hope that you will experience some of those. I hope that you'll experience some of those, like, oh, actually I can handle that now. It's not a big deal. Oh, that thing doesn't trigger me anymore. How interesting. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me if this is brought up more than it feels like you can handle, and that's okay. We're all in different places in our nervous system, and we don't need to be anywhere else. We get to be right where we are. I love you guys so much. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you next week, and we will dive into how to support ourselves when we're feeling anxious. I'll see you guys in the discussion board.